Annabelle Gabberty. You may know me as the founding and managing partner of London and Paris law firm Crefovy. Crefovy is the best law firm to support the creative industries in navigating complex business issues wherever they are in the world. In this new iteration of Crefovy, which is 10 years old this month, we have launched annual and monthly subscription plans that allow you to stay up to date with relevant legal news and updates, focusing on the creative industries. Via our weekly newsletter, our weekly thought leadership articles, and our Lawfully Creative podcasts, you are empowered to lay out your strategy for your creative project, which is compliant with the latest legal and business updates. Subscribe today on crefovy.com/store for the English version or crefovy.com/magasin for the French version. This is Annabelle Gabberty and you're listening to Lawfully Creative from Crefovy. It takes real musical chops to collaborate with Nelly Furtado and David Usher, touring with them and being parts of a live bands for several months. My guest today, singer, songwriter, composer, and more recently finance student Kim Bingham, is an accomplished musician who strives to always improve herself and develop her full potential. Recipient of the Prix Gémeaux for Best Theme Song with The Hero's Take, and winner of the Best Short Form Video Award at the 2013 Independent Music Awards with Up, Kim is making a mark in the music industry. As a music performer, Kim is best known for singles such as Up, Belle Amie, and Beppe Green. She's also brought her talent behind the scene, composing the soundtrack for the series Les Invincibles, both the Canadian version and European version. I wanted to know how she got her start in performing. You were born in Montreal? Is that
I am. Yes, yeah? I was, yes.
Native. So when you were a kid, were you speaking French or English or Québécois or?
I was speaking 3 languages as a kid. I was speaking French at school because it was kindergarten, from kindergarten up to the end of high school. I was in French school. And so since I could speak, I've been speaking French. And then at home it was English and Ukrainian. Because
Indeed, I saw on your Instagram and Facebook, but is that your great-grandmother or your grandmother?
It was my great-grandmother in that photo, right. Yes. Yeah.
You knew your great-grandmother. I mean, I personally briefly knew my great-grandmother, but I barely even so. Did you have a relationship with her somehow? Or?
Yeah, she and my great grandfather partially raised me and my sister while my parents were, working. They'd be the ones picking us up after school and taking care of us until my parents were finished work. So we naturally, my sister and I, became fluent in Ukrainian. Mm-hmm. And I spoke Ukrainian with her up until, she died when I was 28 years old. And since then I've lost the language, but yeah, so those are the 3 languages that I've spoken.
Now I know where those beautiful blue eyes come from. Yeah. So that's your great-grandmother, not your grandmother.
That's my great-grandmother.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so she was Ukrainian as well as your great-grandfather. Wow.
She's yes. Yeah. Ukrainian, to be even more specific, Ukrainian, and those are the Ukrainian part of the family. And then my mom was also born in Poland, so I'm also part Polish as well. But I don't speak Polish as well as I used to speak Ukrainian. Anyway, it's a bit of a mix.
Ukrainian sign is on your dad's side, and then your mom's side, she's got some Polish blood.
No, my dad's Jamaican. My mom is Polish and Ukrainian. My mom's the Polish and Ukrainian one. My dad's Jamaican.
Right. And your dad's got the Jamaican roots. Oh, lovely. Yeah. And so, what did your parents do? I remember. I think I remember when we caught up in Paris. You did mention your mom was in real estate now, but was that at the time what she was doing back then when you were a kid with your sister?
No, back then she was a young mom working jobs at the department stores and that kind of thing. And my dad had a few jobs he was holding down as well to pay the bills. So it was a really standard kind of, getting to the middle class kind of upbringing, with my parents putting everything into me and my sister's education, which ended up where we went to a French school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So 3 languages. It's really makes you sharp as a tack. So it's interesting to see that you've been in several iterations of bands and throughout your career. So initially as part of like a band member in the first one of the first iterations called Me, Mom, and
Morgenthaler. I'll help you out with that.
this apparently guy who is a doctor who was pro-abortion rights, I understand.
That's right. Yes, he was a huge figure in Canadian in Canadian civil rights history, you could say, for women's rights and abortion rights. Yeah.
Okay. Very topical at the moment for North America, and so. So it's interesting to see that it's branded as Canadian third wave ska, and then I listened to some of your tracks, and then I understood what that meant. This reference to scarfing and during your time as Me, Mom, and Morgenthaler, and so at the time and still now. So of course you were a guitarist as a performer. You also a singer, obviously, but during all these various iterations, were you also a lyricist and a composer, or at the beginning you were mostly a performer, and then step by step you added the lyricist skills and music composition skills to your skill set, or?
Yeah, so when I started off in Me, Mom, and Morgenthaler, that was a group of friends in college that we decided to participate in the school end year talent show. And we were also putting the show together, so we kind of had a little bit of leverage to get ourselves on the bill. It ended up being a huge success, chaotic success with our fellow students.
I landed you the Wikipedia page right there.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. So I've been writing songs since I was a little kid. It started with poetry when I was really small. And in Me, Mom, and Morgenthaler, I started to write songs. I was initially asked to join the band because the guys in the band wanted to do some specific ska covers that were that were female fronted. So I said, "Oh, okay, sure, I'll be a part of this." And as the band developed and became a huge cult band in Montreal, I was writing for the band as well. I'd say I was probably like the 3rd ranked songwriter in terms of number of songs I was writing within the band. Okay. So I mean, it was really shortly after we started becoming pretty successful locally that I started writing as well.
And were you a guitarist at that time already?
No, in Me, Mom, and Morgenthaler, I was a singer, but in order to write my songs, my main instrument was guitar. I'd studied piano for a couple of years as a kid, so I had basic solfege and music theory. And then when I was 16, got a guitar, and that was just about 2 years before Me, Mom, and Morgenthaler started. So I would bang out the songs on guitar and then bring them into the band. But otherwise, my role in the band was as a singer.
Awesome. And okay, and then you evolved. So after a few years, you moved on to your own iteration, so through mudgirl. So that's interesting as well, what you're saying about where this is coming from. I mean, I don't know whether you are saying it, but on Wikipedia it says that it's coming from a short story for children that you wrote. Do you want to give us the lowdown on the mudgirl story? Sure.
So I was living in Vancouver at the time. This is after I left Me, Mom, and Morgenthaler. I moved out to Vancouver, and I came up with this character. There's a lot of rain in Vancouver. That wouldn't be anything new to anyone that's been out there. but yeah, it's a bit more of a rainy climate. And I thought of this character who was invisible and was visible only to children and little animals, and she was an urban creature and made of mud, so she could be created out of rain and wet dirt and sort of an allegory, it's, I guess, from Mother Nature, but in a little girl format, and lives in urban environments like park or a parking lot, so things like that. But and so I wrote a couple of short stories about just her adventures in urban environments and what happens to her. And when I was thinking of putting out my own solo project after leaving Me, Mom, and Morgenthaler, I wanted a concept name. So I just came up, I thought, well, I'm going to call the project Mudgirl and form the band within that concept. So it was really, I guess, a way for me to become a solo artist without putting my full name, Kim Bingham, on it, but making it a pseudonym in a way.
Okay. And so also probably it was probably a sort of a metaphor, because you were so a young girl, not lost, but living, fending for herself in a big city. I think Vancouver is quite big compared to Montreal, which is probably it's got much more of a family feel. So it probably was also a stage of your life where you knew how to become independent and autonomous. Okay, so I think your style also evolved from that scarfing, which you can definitely hear really quite well in Me, Mom, and Morgenthaler, into solid rock, I would say, when you were in Mudgirl. And then I noticed that when you did your own release quite later on, in particular with the Up album, you went more into this poppy style. So would you agree with? And also it's interesting because when you were doing this pretty hard rock style in the Mudgirl catalog and repertoire, even your voice was still almost angelic. I mean, it wasn't a kind of or pretty low voice like Rita Mitsuko, Carolina from It Takes low voice. With an Adele, she's got quite a low voice. But no, your voice is pretty more on the range. It's quite high pitched and delicate. Even though all the arrangements were much more rock and bass and boom 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 bass. Would you agree with this this sort of evolution towards pop music, and also the fact that you always made sure that your lyrics were more on the ethereal side of things?
Yeah, well, I think that the evolution from Mudgirl through to the Up album, where at that point with Up, I'm putting out music under my own name. I think what Mudgirl was put out more was a mid-90s, late 90s kind of thing. And so that was also part of the grunge area. There was more of that kind of crunchy, distorted sound that was going on at the time. I think what I was writing was in a reflection of that time too. And I think with Up, there was, and my evolution from Mudgirl through to Up was, I did a lot of writing. First of all, there was quite a number of years between the two releases. I did a lot of writing collaborations, a lot of songs that other artists covered as well, exploring different creative avenues. So,
well, on Up or in between?
In between, yeah.
I'm going to come back to this.
Yeah. So I think, but so I think that definitely there was another level of I could say that my creative skills had evolved at that point, and so as an artist, I just am in a different place at the point where I'm putting out Up than I was at Mudgirl.
Fair enough. And also what I've noticed is the level of care and also creativity you put into the videos, the music videos, especially for the Up album. Have you always had quite a big creative input as a creator, as a director and as a producer of these music videos, or do you usually subcontract that to someone else?
So usually when I started off in mudgirl, I think my very first independent video after leaving Me, Mom and Morgenthaler was for a song called "This Day" off the mudgirl EP, and that was my concept. I've always had this video view, and this is a very MTV.
Yes.
Video kill the radio star. MTV video. It's got to be quirky, entertaining. It's a video. Why not? If it's a crazy idea, why not? That's what that's my point of view, and I think that sometimes a really strong, simple concept is all you need. The
Contact music video was quite complex.
Yes, that was. Yeah. So sometimes the vision where I haven't had a very strong vision, the creative collaborator I'm with, the director, would, and then we'd go through with that. Of course, I always have final approval on whatever's put out. Contact was definitely one where the director took the lead on the ideas for that, and I think that she did a great job. For a lot of them, I produce them. So like I said, either I'm coming up with the idea and we're collaborating, me and the director, on getting it out, or else it's that the director's got something fantastic and I'm just giving my final approval on it.
Okay, lovely. So, and so actually, I think this is really relevant to basically the level of control you would have over the music videos. But were you signed to any label at this stage during the mudgirl years, or?
I wasn't signed to any label. I had labels that were interested in Canada and in the US at that time around mudgirl. I did sign with EMI Music Publishing. At the time it was EMI Music Publishing. Now it's Sony ATV. Yeah. So out of Canada, the Canadian office signed me for the world. Okay. So I was with publishing, but I hadn't signed with any.
You didn't have a label for?
No.
Okay.
No,
because usually it's the label. I mean, especially back in the MTV years, who would look after the music video creation. So after the mudgirl years, I understand that you moved on to another band in which you were basically the leader, the Kim Band, for quite a few years, actually around 5-6 years. And you were very, very close to one of the band members, is my understanding. Did you not meet your husband in this band?
Yeah, that was during the mudgirl period that and it was really just around the time that I released. We worked on the mudgirl EP together. That's Stephen Drake, my ex-husband, and I was in a fantastic band called The Odds, one of the best bands ever and one of the best bands out of Canada, period. But that's a whole other. They're called the Odds, or Odds, ODDS. Great songwriters.
And going?
I think so. Yes, I know that he'd left the band a while ago, but the band is still working.
To be honest, aside from Arcade Fire. Mm-hmm. And the French Québécois people, like Le Forestier, I think it's his name. I am not very familiar with Canadian music. Of course, there's also the new band with Avril Lavigne and Drake but otherwise, in terms of Canadian rock bands, aside from Arcade Fire, I'm a little.
There's a whole. Oh well, then you should. You should, one day you can take a deep dive and discover all the wonderful music out there that's on offer. So I worked with Stephen on the mudgirl record, and he worked on the Kim Band record, and it was right around the time that the Kim Band record got released that we split up. So so really for the Kim Band era, I was creatively at that point. I was creatively on my own.
Yeah. Okay. And so I noticed that you did quite a few collaborations. One of them with David Husher, who I had not heard of, who seems to be an Asian slash European mixed, probably Canadian man. Very handsome, really lively eyes and stuff. And so, actually, I watched the MTV music video of his of the title "Black Black Heart," in which I believe you were handling the female vocals. Did you write as well?
I didn't write. No, so that's kind of an interesting experience. First of all, David's fantastic, and I was really honored to be able to play with him for oh gosh, it was a good while. It was like 2-3 years. I think I played in his band, and
titles, but Black Heart.
Oh well, I was on the road. I don't know that I participated on the recording sessions and the albums, but I definitely was part of the touring, and it was touring band, and this was kind of around. It's a while back. We're like around 2000, 2001, 2002. And well, with Black Black Heart, the interesting thing was that I didn't sing that opera part. Obviously on the album, it's a sample. And then live, I would sing it. I would sing the opera part live.
The video, the girl with the brown hair but short hair. That's not you, is it?
No, it's not.
I was like, it could be her, but then the hair a bit too short. And
no. But people associate my time with playing in David Usher's band with singing the opera part of Black Black Heart.
I was wondering, although it's completely different sort of music register, but why not? Thanks for clarifying this. And so with Nelly Furtado, who is obviously much more of a pop artist, so you were a guitarist and backing vocalist with her on the road. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, it was the same job I was doing with David as a session player, which is a job I absolutely love. I love kind of getting into another artist's world and being a part of what they do and kind of tagging along on their journey. And so in the same way that David and his people came and approached me to be a part of his band, Nelly and her people had approached me while I was with David if I wanted to come and join up with her. And so I was honored to do so. And it was a really great experience.
So where did you play, for example, with Furtado?
So with Nelly, I did an extended promo tour. So that was all radio and television all over the world. I don't know. We didn't make it out to Asia. I didn't go to Asia with her, but all over North America and all over Europe. A lot of whether it's television shows or, it was at the time, it was like Tonight Show and Good Morning America and Rayuno. I loved it. I really did. I learned a lot from her. A lot of the time, on these promo tours, it's not the full band. So it's often it's not the full band. It can be just her and an accompanying musician at a radio station doing an acoustic the song and acoustic version live. So a lot of the time I was the person there because the musician there with her because I was playing guitar, acoustic guitar or electric guitar, depending what the situation was, and doing the backup vocals with her. So I had pretty much an up close and personal view of what the lifestyle is of an international pop star with songs on the international charts, and I learned a lot from her about work because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and I learned a lot from David as well. Not to take anything away from David's success, because he's a massively successful as well as an artist. Nelly's success on the top 40 charts internationally, that kind of thing. I mean, it's a big machine, and I definitely appreciated her work ethic.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. She
and her as a person, she's really nice.
She's also Canadian.
She is, and her middle name is Kim, so we had a lot in common. It was cool.
So when you say her and the people and David and his people approached you, so were you ever with a manager or an agent, or always you manage yourself, or?
So I had a really fun period of my life being managed by Network Management, and Network is based out of Vancouver. They're an internationally renowned management company, and this is right around the mudgirl period, when I had a lot of label interest, especially from the United States. At the time, Network was managing Sarah McLachlan, a Canadian artist who made it internationally. She also created a music festival called Lilith Fair. That was a women-led music festival, and I was invited to be a part of that. Network manages, I don't know if they still do, but they have managed Coldplay, Avril Lavigne, some really major artists. So
Coldplay is Canadian?
No, Coldplay's British, but they have been managed by Network Management. I don't know who they're with now, but I do know that Coldplay at one point was part of their roster. So
probably somewhere in LA, because I think that Chris Martin now is relocated to LA. We're living with Dakota Johnson. Actually.
Okay. So yeah, that was my major stint with management, was at that time, and since then I've had some management interest here and there, or they've been there for a few months and then they're not there anymore. I'm used to being very entrepreneurial, independent artist.
The bit that I learned about you is that you also scored some film series, and so you had a sync through Bellamy, I understand. So Bellamy was synced to the into a TV show called I think
Good Trouble.
Thank you, Good Trouble.
Yeah.
But you also had basically were commissioned a film score for the series, the TV series Les Invincibles.
Yes, that was another thing. I was really fortunate to be. I was fortunate to be asked to score the music for the series. That story is kind of interesting because it was really at the time I was touring with David Usher, and I remember it was sound check at a show that we had in Montreal that this young guy, baseball cap and jeans, comes up to me and says, I'm a director and I'm a writer and I'm writing a TV series. And when I get the money to produce it, I want you to write the music for it. And it's about 4 guys and would love to have a female voice on the music as a counterpoint. And I'm a big fan and love for you to do it. And I said, sure, let's keep in touch. And about a year and a half later, he contacted me saying, yeah, okay, we have the funding from the network and we're doing the first season, and are you still available? And so that's how I got into composing the music for Les Invincibles.
On which broadcast was it?
It was originally in Canada. It was a Quebec-based show. In French, so it was on Radio-Canada, which is the French version of the CBC. And then it ran for 3 seasons and it was a cult hit. In fact, it still runs in syndication. It's still talked about in certain parts. The characters became iconic. The actors have gone on to do really great things. The creators of the show as well have done other series and been very successful since. That show...
that was 2005 to 2009, yeah?
Yeah, it was, in that window also, the scripts were sold to a Franco-Belgian production company. And so I asked the Franco-Belgian production if they were interested in having me compose the music for that series as well. And they said, sure. So that series, the Franco-Belgian production, it was Franco-Belgian German production, that was broadcast on Arte, and it ran for 2 seasons, and I did the music for that as well.
In the mid-noughties as well?
Yeah.
Awesome. Gosh. And did you pursue further this career as a in film.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the puzzling part to me is that part because I've had success with sync. I've had success as a composer. I mean, the Invincible project in Quebec got me nominated twice for Best Original Score from Prix Gémeaux, the Gemini Awards, which is the Canadian Emmy Awards, Canadian Television Awards. And I won for Best Theme Song as well. I won a Canadian Emmy and Gémeaux for that. But following that, I couldn't get any representation, and I didn't get any other offers for other projects. And so subsequently, I ended up leaving Quebec to go to Los Angeles, just because I could, and it was a change of scene, and I wanted to see what was out there for me. In California. So
your mom lives in Los Angeles, does she not?
No, I have family on my dad's side of the family that lives in California, but my mom's in Texas actually.
Oh, sorry, Texas, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, there are indeed some of the biggest agents for music composition in Los Angeles, just Garfain Schwartz, I think. Etc. But if you look, for example, at the French market, you see that there's just like a handful of music composers who are represented by top agents such as Alexandre Desplat. I think there's another one called Neverny or something. And but it's quite rare to have a performer, songwriter who actually manages to get some music composition work. So well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I know that since I did that show, I mean, I think I was part of a starting of a trend of that kind of music in film and TV, which was more kind of singer-songwritery based. The palette I used to write the music was the palette that I had available to me that I felt comfortable with, and that was a guitar-based palette, vocal, percussion, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, I know that it's become kind of commonplace to hear more of that kind of music, but it wasn't at the time when I did it. It was not.
Did you record in a studio, or did you do everything on Pro Tools or something?
Here at home on Pro Tools, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it was, I mean, you have to understand also, I spent a lot of my career through Mudgirl and the Kim Band in the studio. Was with my husband at the time, Stephen, and he was one of the top, considered one of the top producers and mixers in Canada. So a lot, I was accompanying him on a lot of these projects, and I also have a bit of I consider myself to have an ear for sound. I like tinkering on gadgets, so engineering and that kind of thing.
You do?
I do like that. Yeah, if you give me a gadget and a manual, I'll read the manual. I'll read the whole thing, top to bottom. That's the kind of person that I am. So I was really comfortable. I've always been really comfortable recording at home. You too?
And I will also do the empirical, just with using the gadget. So I'll do reading as well as using the empirical method with the gadget. But also on this point of music composition for TV series, this is an enormous, I mean, although I know the streamers are a bit suffering at the moment, because of the sort of economy slowing down and stuff. So people, I don't know why, people can't afford to have like 3 or 4 subscriptions per month to Disney Plus and Netflix and Paramount. This is amazing. I mean, anyway, my point is that despite this thing, it's true that there are lots of new TV series coming out, and therefore it's probably quite good for music supervisors and composers. If you like this episode of Lawfully Creative with Kim Bingham, why not listen to episode 17 of a show with French flautist, composer, and performer Magic Malik. Lawfully Creative is brought to you by Crefovy. Of so you've been in quite a few bands, either where you were fronting or when you were, as you were saying, a session musician or a performer. what did you make of these band dynamics? Did you like being the leader in these various bands for the Kim band or Mudgirl, or did you prefer to be in a position where you were sort of an employee, or you like to mix the both a little bit of the two, or do you prefer the way music is done now, where you basically can do everything on Pro Tools?
Well, so I think that doing everything on Pro Tools and doing everything on your own that way, I think, is a separate subject. But to answer your question, as far as like what kind of whether I liked being a session musician or being an independent band leader. Actually, I think I really loved mixing it up and doing both. That was definitely the most fun. The challenge is that when you're a session musician, you're dedicated to another artist's project, yours definitely does take a back seat. So, deadlines, things that you might want to do, or I'll speak for myself, things that I wanted to do as an independent artist, I had to shelve or time later on down the line because we'd be on the road for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it was. So, but I loved.
That would be a bit frustrating, though.
It was a bit frustrating, and that's primarily why I decided that I would go back to focusing on my own individual career, because I did have projects that I wanted to take care of. I mean, it really was pretty soon after I decided, after I wasn't working with Nelly anymore, I left Nelly's group, that Les Invisibles came along. So I didn't even have that much time to, between leaving Nelly's band and starting Les Invisibles, to really work on my own album project either. So, yeah, so, you have to, you really can only do one thing well at a time. Although I know artists, I'm guilty of that. I try to do multiple things at a time, but it's just the reality of it. What I loved about doing both,
to pay the bills. So
yeah, also, but what I loved about doing both was just how you can learn from one situation and then apply these things, to your own. I really loved, as far as working on my own, I loved also having the contracts, writing music for TV or ads and things like that, because you are at home on your own and you're kind of like the queen of your own domain, and you've got your deadlines, but they're giving you the space to work, and it's very well remunerated. I mean, at least my contracts were very well remunerated.
It generates some additional streams of income, which in this day and age is always very important.
Yeah.
The bit about Pro Tools and being able to do all your music on your own was that now it's amazing, because you don't need to go into a recording studio with I don't know how many session musicians to do anything. You can do everything on your own, but it's just when you go live, because I don't know if you remember, but I actually not discovered, but I saw you playing at Midem in 2013, which probably was the second time I was going to Midem ever, because I found in my phone in 2012. And so that's where I saw you. And I suppose that, for example, at Midem, you just had these session musicians for the live session were there, but these are guys that you just going to see specifically for this live Midem event, and then everybody would move on to their other projects. So I think this is quite convenient now, because you just have basically to give the score sheet to your various session musicians. Okay, so I've created this, and you're going to play that, and then we're going to do a live show, and then everybody will go their own way. So it seems to me that nowadays, compared to the grunge area or compared to the early noughties, it's much easier to basically do all the groundwork, do all the creation, do all the creativity by yourself, so to speak. And then after, if you want to do some live performances, you hire some staff, but they are freelance, so it's also cheaper and easy to manage. Have you noticed this flexibility nowadays compared to how it was 10 or 20 years ago, or am I affabulating?
Well, I think I've always worked that way since I left since I left my band. I'd say mudgirl was constituted as a band, although it was really me under another name. But but other than that, it's really since I I went under Kim Bingham. I dropped Mudgirl and I was the Kim band, and then going to Kim Bingham. I have been working that way with musicians that I've hired. In fact, I had at a certain point where I had a group of musicians I worked with in LA, a group of musicians I worked with in Montreal, a group of musicians I worked with in Toronto, a group of musicians I worked with in Europe, and that kind of thing. And so, yes, it is convenient. I think the thing I would say is it depends on the artist. Even if you have if you've got the material down and you can transmit it to the musicians to play it, you have to be a pretty astute musical director to be able to draw out of the band, out of that disparate group of musicians sometimes, what the sound is that you're looking for. So
make sure it's a good fit.
Yeah, not all artists necessarily have that skill. It's an interpersonal skill. It's also that you are looking, what it is that you want to hear, and being able to communicate that to the musicians. I think if and then it's the casting of the band too, and who you choose to play together, that it's all compatible too. So there's a few moving pieces to it actually sounding like a credible, cohesive thing that delivers. And I think that sometimes it might be what's lost in working that way when it's not successful.
Right. So this is something you have to take, to be mindful of if you want to come across as a band when you play live. Fair enough. And so today, are you still, is your publishing still managed by EMI Sony, or do you do that yourself now, or?
I'm no longer with Sony ATV. Part of my catalog is from the days of Mudgirl and the Kim Band. I asked to be let go during the financial crisis, and they let me go for $1. So I was very happy about that. That was really at a time when
is your catalog back to you?
Yeah, they didn't. No, they didn't return the rights. They still have the rights on the Mudgirl, and it's a co-publishing deal. So
also the advance or something.
They just basically they decided they would let me go for any future future songs. Yeah.
But what about the Up album? Is that
some of it? Yeah. Some of it I'd written while I was still under contract with EMI at the time. Then it changed. I think it was at Sony at that point.
Okay.
And so I'd say about a quarter or a third of the album is with Sony Publishing, and then the rest of it is mine.
Do you still see the residuals and the royalties and the royalty statement? You started producing doing your own stuff, so yeah, that was in the 90s. Yeah. So how's that? Is that something that you're still seeing some money coming through the publishing and coming from the neighboring rights?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do. There's a couple of things. First is my material isn't properly consolidated in all the streaming services. I found one issue.
One of my questions, actually.
Yeah. So that's actually something I'll be doing in the near future, which is to consolidate Kim Band and Mudgirl under Kim Bingham. So it's a digital re-release, so that, if you go to my Spotify page, for example, or Apple Music page, all the releases will be there, because right now they're sort of split up. So my audiences are split up as well. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, I do. I still do see the residuals, but I expect that once everything's consolidated, it'll be even stronger that way.
Absolutely. Yeah, indeed, that's true. You have to manage your catalog too, especially if you've been producing stuff under different names. That's a fair point. And so actually the question was, are you also seeing some money from the streaming as well?
I do, but it's a fraction of a fraction. I'm not at millions of streams. I think I'm not at millions of streams, so I'm not seeing lots of revenue from that. Where I am seeing revenue really is still from sync, from whether it's the composing contracts that I've had and these series that are in syndication running over and over in these different networks.
Residuals.
Yeah. Or the song Bellamy that I sold to Disney for the Disney produced show good trouble. Yeah.
Awesome. I wasn't aware of that. You need to add this to your Wikipedia. So.
Well, unfortunately, I can't do it, but maybe I'll talk to someone. Maybe they know someone and they can do it.
Ask your mum to put that through. And what about the live? I remember when we caught up in Paris around pre-pandemic times, 3 or 4 years ago, perhaps, you told me that you were going to Italy quite a lot because you were in a relationship with your hairdresser there, who does well.
Good memory.
Yeah, and so on the back of that, I understand you've done a few shows there. So are you resuming the touring live in Europe, or is that?
So I initially, just as I have budgets drawn up to do shows. I have all of that. And the pandemic really wreaked havoc on all of it. I had the last show that I had booked was pre-pandemic, and it was at a festival in Italy, and it got rained out so bad. So I haven't performed live since before the pandemic. Where I do perform live, in person. Right. Where I do perform live is online and doing live streams that I do for my Patreon. Yes, I have a Patreon account, and for my Patreon subscribers, I do a monthly love stream, and it's a really fun thing. We do it on Zoom, so my subscribers and I get to catch up, and I play requests or my stuff reworked.
Is it Kim Bingham, the handle?
Yes, it's Patreon. Yeah, you'd find me under Kim Bingham. Absolutely. Okay. It's really fun. It was one of those things, actually, it was during the pandemic. That's what I worked on was I want to get a Patreon out. I want to get performing at least in that way. And so it's been a little over a year that I've had it, and I love it. It's so fun.
Yeah, I think the podcast would definitely be a good addition, Kim, to your, like the spoken word in addition to all the music live performances. You could also add that on the Patreon. That's cool. Cool. And so what prompted the move from, I suppose, LA to Paris?
So it went from LA to Montreal to Paris. I produced, it was really short. I was in LA for about a couple of years. I did the Up album while I was there. I also, what else? I did the Up album, and I did the soundtrack album for, I did a few albums there. I did Atel Med, my French EP. I did a few things while I was there. And I did the soundtrack album for Les Invisibles as well that I was there. It was my one major label collaboration. It was a licensing deal with Warner Canada, and that went very well.
Licensing deal with Warner Canada?
With Warner Canada for I did a soundtrack album for Les Invisibles because the music was such a hit with the audience of the show. They were requesting the cover versions and the music that I did, and so for audience request, I put together we put together a soundtrack album that I produced. Yeah, and so I did that out in LA. I did Up out in LA. I did
2010 to 2012.
That's around 2000 Up I did after the soundtrack album, so that was around 2009, 2010, and I went back to Montreal to release it, and from there, that's where I ran into these issues with the album itself, that there was a lot of high expectations for it, but it was put out mainly in Quebec, and the feedback that I got was that it was a good sounding record. This is from radio there in Quebec. It was a good sounding record, but American sounding, and I was singing in English, and they had a lot of French quotas. So that's when I headed out to Midam and decided I would join the Canadian delegation and head out to Midam and see what happens. And that's where.
Wow. When I met you in 2013, you were not relocated permanently to Paris yet.
No, I had just literally come out to see how things were going to go, and Midam ended up being a big hit for me. I got a lot of French feedback. I know. It's too bad. It's too bad.
I saw it coming, to be honest. I mean, it's not the French, the Cannes mayor who is going to save me. Then now they say that the Cannes town hall is going to take over. But I mean, these people don't have a skill set. So actually, like a trade show for the music business. But no, I saw it coming, Midam, and it's. But I mean, back in 2013, it was still cool and quite a lot of great performances. Okay, so so in 2013 you were sort of testing the waters with coming to Europe, I understand. And are you happy in Paris? I mean, is that working well for you with all this mask that we had to wear for like outside? I mean, I barely stepped a foot in Paris since 2019, to be honest. I go there 3 or 4 times a year and I fuck off as soon as I can because I can't stand this police environment. Well, how do you feel about it?
About Paris in general?
Yeah, Macron years. My God.
You know what? Paris has been good to me, so I can't complain. It turned out to be in a really crazy way. I wouldn't have expected to be here or based out of here because I'm between here and the United States. That's really how my lifestyle is. Yeah, Texas, yes, here in Dallas mainly, yeah, and so that's kind of been my lifestyle since I've been here. Yeah, it's ended up being a good place for me. So I'm. How
long is the flight, Paris to Dallas?
Oh gosh, it's like 10 hours, 10 hours. It's long.
So I remember last time I caught up with you, you said you also started to do some stuff in real estate yourself, and so is that something you're still doing, or you? So yeah, so one of the detours that actually one of the things that Paris brought me to and detours that my life has taken since being here is that I fell into real estate on the international side with Americans wanting to purchase property in France. And so I've started a side career in that as well. And so I consult for Americans. I've been consulting for years for Americans wanting to purchase property. Yes, and so that's what's led me to my master's degree that I'm doing in wealth management at Paris Dauphine. Yeah, it's an outgrowth of my expertise in the real estate sector in France that led me to be accepted into this master's program. And that's sort of turning back over, developing something new back in music in a new way. Yeah, in the blockchain. My master's thesis that I'm currently writing is on how NFTs change the artist business model, the musician's business model. Steve Aoki is very much at the forefront of this. I listened to a podcast he's done with a guy from Decode. And he seems to be very much at the forefront of all that, Steve Aoki. I don't really know of a lot of other artists who are, perhaps Snoop Dogg is doing quite a lot of things with NFTs. So what's the name of your master, by the way, at Paris Dauphine? It's Master 2, Formation Master 2 en Gestion de Patrimoine. So wealth management. It's quite wide. It's not only Bitcoin or real estate. It's actually everything having to do with how you manage a euro. That's it. That's pretty much it. Paris Dauphine is extremely renowned. So it's great to have this on your CV. Yeah, and what is the plan with this? I mean, how do you intend to use all these skills? So I was thinking about how I was going to employ this new knowledge and wealth management to my life and actually really focus pretty much solely on music or the music industry and being involved in this thing. I realized also for myself that I get bored quite easily. And as a kid, I had a list of a dozen things I wanted to be in my life, whether it was an astronaut or a painter or a scientist or an architect or a singer or a rock star. And you wanted to do all these things? Yeah, I did. Yeah. And when I turned 8, I was like, I'll be a lawyer. That's a lawyer in my family. I was like, I want to be a lawyer. That's so good. It's so you knew, and here you are. For me, it's kind of been a
ping pong ball kind of thing. And being a rock musician and a rock singer and a singer-songwriter is the thing that's come the most naturally to me out of anything I've done. And I think that's why I've had the success that I've had in my career. But my brain I like to do other things. So the wealth management degree, in the sense, the training, the schooling was really interesting because it is so many different aspects of, if it's taxation or law or business, financial analysis or, stock market analysis. There's so many different aspects. And what can you do with this? Well, my master's thesis is really the thing that's guiding me right now, because I am writing it on how NFTs are changing the business model for artists. As I'm studying that, I am also volunteering myself for my own thesis to be a guinea pig and create NFTs and get out there. Yeah, so that's the next thing I'm be doing over the next few weeks is creating NFTs and putting them out there. And this is where the podcast actually comes up too, because as I'm interviewing people for my research, because a lot of the research isn't academic. The whole space is so new. There aren't a lot of academic research papers that are written on it. It's more with, and basically anywhere. Bitcoin's existed since 2018. It's really been crazy since 2017. NFTs are still new.
By definition, very risk adverse. So whenever there are going to be some courses about that, it's not going to be Europeans are going to put them out. It's going to be probably, people from the Silicon Valley and universities over there and probably New York. So yeah, that's great. So you're gathering lots of information from these interviews. But you could definitely do a podcast by mixing all this and making it like a proper, document.
Yeah,
not
exactly.
Maybe even video stuff. Perhaps.
Series, yeah. So I have I have an idea of where I'm going to be taking this. I'm looking for podcast producers right now because I have the list of some people have said they're willing to talk to me. So I've got my interviewees ready, just like you see. So I'm going to be jumping into that. Awesome. And and so that means NFTs. It means Kim Bingham, Web 3.0 coming up, because I have unreleased songs, and now there'll be the NFTs, the podcast, and all of that. So it's kind of I'm going into a whole new space with this evolution of my career.
Myself, because you were saying, 3.0 and stuff, but I mean, in our law firm, we are doing this at the moment. We're working with developers to also start selling our products online. And through subscription models, etc. It's fascinating. And, that's what we need to prepare for the next 10 years. I mean, things are a bit slow at the moment anyway, because of one thing and another. So let's make the most of the time by upgrading all the websites and doing more work on the, podcast and how to. One thing, though, that I find difficult with podcasts is how to monetize them. This is still something which is not quite clear how you monetize podcasts, because we don't really want to have lots of ads, but okay, well, I guess this is it for me in terms of questions.
Thank you, Annabelle. It was fun.
Yeah, thank you for your time, and I wish you the best for this master. When are you supposed to wrap it up?
Presenting it in about 2 months, so I have until the end of August to write it, and presenting it early September.
Early September. Wow.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Lovely. Kim, it's been wonderful. My thanks to Kim Bingham. This episode was recorded at Crefovy Studios in London and produced by Crefovy. I am Annabelle Gabberty. Lawfully Creative is brought to you by Crefovy.